Hi everyone, thank you for tuning in. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to make this beautiful shirt. So I'm using the cotton fabric. The first thing I'm going to do is to fold my fabric into two, like so, and then I'm marking 2.5 inches along the where the buttons will be, and I'm also marking 1.5 inches at the same place. So I have two lines there which I'll be folding for the buttons. I'm inserting my shoulder measurement divided by 2, coming down by 1 inch to create the shoulder slant. I'm going to mark the neckline starting from the 1.5 inch line, just about 2.5 inches across and 3 inches down. I use my French curve to create that, and then I am creating the shoulder slant as well. After that, I'll be using my tape measure to insert the armhole length depth, where I'm going to put in the chest line and put in the bust measurement divided by 4, like so. I'm starting from the 1.5 inch line right there, and I mark that. So the next thing I'll do is simply use my French curve to create the armhole curve. And then I'm marking the full length of the top. Now the top is going to be, the front will be longer, or rather shorter, sorry, than the back. And I'll shape that. It's not going to be straight at the end of the day. But before we get there, I'm marking the waistline, put in my waist measurement, create a curve. I'll join it to the baseline where I've inserted my hip measurement divided by 4, marked it right there, and I create that beautiful curve to the end. Right after this, the front of the shirt is ready, and I'm cutting out. Remember, we're coming back to reshape the base of this top. I'm going to be opening where the buttonholes will be also, like so, all the way to the end. I'm using the front to cut the back. I don't need that allowance for the buttonholes again. I'm adjusting altering it by 0.5 inches at the shoulder and 0.25 at this end. That's a new shoulder line. Take note of that. I create a slant, 0.5 inches on one side, 0.25 on this side. And then I create the back neck curve, 1 inch depth down. Look at that. You see, we don't have buttons at the back. At the midpoint of the armhole, I can come out by 0.5 inches just to alter. Then I insert the back measurement. I told you the back is longer than the front. So we're going to shape the front first. Look at that. I just went up by 1.5 inches at the side, created a curve, and then we're cutting that out. Then I'll put in the back curve as well. The back will be nicely shaped, longer than the front. Look at that. From that point, I create a curve, join it to that place, and we're going to cut out. You can see I remove the buttonhole allowance. The back doesn't have that. And then I cut that out. You can see that from the folding in the picture. The 1.5 inches is out. Look at our new shoulder line. And this is what you have, the front, and then you have the back as well. Look at the back. Beautiful. So the next thing we're going to do, the remaining of the fabric, I'll fold into two to cut the armhole, or rather the sleeve. So I marked my sleeve width, depth, and then the armhole, I'm marking 4 inches right there. I'm now going to curve that to the midpoint of the sleeve. Look at that. You see the shape is different from a normal sleeve shape. I put in the length of my sleeve minus 3 inches because I'm going to create a cuff or a wristband at the end of my top. So I'm going to put in the sleeve wrist width, but I'll be adding 1 inch allowance for a pleat, which will be made on that, and then half inch for my sewing allowance. So whatever is yours, you input the measurement. There I put in my elbow measure width divided by 2, so that I ensure that it's not too small, and then I shape out that like so. So at that wrist point, remember, it's your wrist measurement with an extra 1 inch for the pleat, and then half an inch for your sewing allowance. Now I'm going to cut out the wristband, which will be my wrist divided by 2. Of course, my wrist is like 10 inches, so I'm going to use 10 inches plus half an inch for sewing allowance. And then the length of it is about 4 inches. 1 inch is going for the allowance. I pin that together and I am going to draw it. It looks like a rectangle. I placed it on fold. I'm going to need 4 pieces of this wristband. Okay, so this is I'm going up by 1 inch at the side and 1 inch on the other side to create a triangle. If you look at some of your shirts, you have that on the wristband. It's not all straight. That will give you the beautiful shape. So I'll get 4 of these, put my paper gum behind them so that they will be thick and firm. That's it. Now on the back of the top, I go down by 5.5 inches. I'm going to fix another fabric here to double this upper part of my shirt like so. I'll sew at half an inch, sewing allowance from one end to the other end and fold over. Once that is done, I'm going to do a top stitch as well on this. And look at that. I'll use this second piece I've attached to the shirt up to where the collar will be and reshape it into what the other part looks like. Look at that. So this upper part going up to the collar is doubled and to make your shirt firm. I'm sure you've seen that on some shirts. So the next thing we're going to do, take the front of the shirt. Look at that beautiful piece and attach it to the shoulder of this. I've top stitched it right there neatly, and I'll take the front part of the shirt now. Yes, and fix it to the shoulder. I'll turn over the other part because at the end of the day, these shoulder stitches will all be hidden inside. The work will be really neat. Look at that. I'm going to turn over and sew at half an inch sewing allowance. All of the untidiness goes inside, and then I'll turn it out after sewing. It's going to be nice and neat. Look at that. You turn it over and you can't see any of the rough edges. So neat. And I'll top stitch this as well to hold it in place. Now for the front where the buttonhole is, I'm folding at 1.5 inches. Put my paper gum at the back or gum stay or whatever you want to use. This is where the buttonholes are going to be. So for the wristband, we have put our paper gum inside. I told you I'll do so. I'm sewing round at half an inch sewing allowance. I'll notch it and turn over, iron it, and you have a beautiful wristband. So with that, we're ready to fix it to the top. Next thing we're going to do is to mark the sleeves. Yes, at 3 inches, and I'm going up at 5 inches. Now, this is at the wrist area where we're going to fix the wristband. So we're going to get 2 strips of fabric. One strip is 1.5 inches wide. The other strip is 2 inches wide. And I measured it by 8 inches, okay, long. So I'm fixing the smaller, it's a bias anyway, to the smaller part that I opened up like so, all the way to where I cut the triangle, not cut it out, create a notch there for folding that bias that we cut, the 1.5 inches by 8 inches. I fold it over neatly like so to cover that edge. If you notice, the wrists of your shirts usually have an opening, and that's what we're doing. I'm going to sew on top of that neatly. This is the smaller part, then we're going to take the bigger part. Look at that. That is 8 inches by 2 inches. I'll sew it here at half an inch, turn it over to the front. This is the one we're going to use to cover up the rough edges. I'm notching it as well to enable us fold neatly. Turn it over and sew, as you can see. When I get to the top now, I'm going to create a triangle with the excess to cover up every rough edges. I'm turning, folded in, I'll turn, create a triangle and go down neatly again, and then we stop. At this point, we're going to have a nice opening neat like that, and then we can take the arm of the sleeve. Look at that. I'm making sure it's neatly done. Fasten, you go around and turn again to close up. At this point, I can now close my sleeve using a French seam before we fix in the wrist. So before then, I'm going to cut out the collar riser. This is simply the length of the collar, which I got by measuring around the neck after joining the shoulder of the front and the back shirt. So I put in my measurement and cut out, keep it first, I'm going to fix in the wristband of this. I'm marking at 2 inches. I'm going to make a notch there. That is where we're going to have the pleat of the extra 1 inch I told you we gave allowance for. So we fix in the wristband. At that point, we fold over 1 inch and sew at half an inch from one end to the other. Look at that. Turn over your wristband and you sew on top neatly. Once that is done, this is the beautiful sleeve that you're going to have. Look at that. Beautiful with the opening, and that's where your buttonhole is going to be. Yes, fix your buttonhole there and a button. So we come to the collar. The collar is going to be 1 inch shorter than the collar riser that we earlier cut off. So I trim that off. Then on top of the collar, I'm coming down by half an inch. Just watch that. We're going to create a shape on top of the collar. This collar right now is folded into two. So I'm coming down by half an inch. I mark it there and create a slant to the edge. Like so. And then I cut that out. After this, we're going to make another shape or another adjustment again. On getting here, we'll take out another 1 inch. This is the part that will be to the collar riser. So I put in 1 inch and mark it, create a slant to the part of the collar that goes to the collar riser. Behind this collar, I'm going to put in my paper gum to make it strong, or you can use gum stay. Okay, look at that. And then I'll put it over, sew round at half an inch, leaving the space for the collar riser open because I'll attach that to the collar riser right away. Turn over, notch it, and this is what you have. I've attached the collar riser to the collar, and on the corners there, I'm going to create a shape, just curving it round the edges like you see on your shirts. Look at that. Making it curve nicely. Half-inch sewing allowance. I curved it. This is going to fit in directly into the collar like so. Beautiful. I'll turn this over, notch it, sew, turn, or rather sew, notch, turn, iron, like so, and begin to fix to the shirt. Right away. This is beautiful already. Look at that. Remember to iron it. And this is what you're going to have. So the collar and the collar riser are set to be fixed on the shirt. So we go straight up to the neck of the shirt where we took our measurement, and then you pin in your collar, sew from one end to another, and then fold over and sew on top neatly so that all of the rough edges go inside. At the end of the day, you're going to have it nicely fixed. Look at that. I'm folding over now, and I get to the other end after sewing. There you go. And your collar is properly fixed in. At this point, the next thing I'm going to do is to close the sides of the shirt down using a French seam so that all rough edges are hidden. Once I've done that, I'm going to be going on to fixing the sleeve, also using a French seam. I'll pin that in nicely. It's going to fit perfectly. The measurements are fine. I'll fold over the base of my shirt neatly, and my shirt is done. I fixed in my buttonholes and my buttons. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned something new today. I'll see you on my next video. Bye bye. Please don't forget to subscribe.